Five, four, three, two, one. This is the Jedi 08, also known as Jeremy the Jedi Guillory, here, and this is the Broken Turnbuckle podcast. I am your host, Jeremy the Jedi Guillory, also known as the Jedi 08. My partner and co-host, Tyler Williams, is not here today due to personal reasons. This is episode 1. This is going to be a work in progress. So let's get ready. Let's have some fun. And let's get started. So today's episode of The Broken Turnbuckle, we talk about WrestleMania venues and what makes them good and perfect for WrestleMania. So, as we all know, WrestleMania takes place in different venues in different areas. So, what makes a WrestleMania venue the perfect place to go to? Well, 1 is destination, 2 is population, 3 is same reason as all the other places that you can think of. So that is really it. Follow where the money is, follow where the best places are. So we get several good places to go to each year, each opportunity. There's been several places in California, New York, Florida, and 3 times in New Orleans, including next year, including in 2026. So this year they are going to be at is really it. Follow where the money is, follow where the best places are. So we get several good places to go to each year, each opportunity. There's been several places in California, New York, Florida, and 3 times in New Orleans, including next year, including in 2026. So this year they are going to be at is really it. Follow where the money is, follow where the best places are. So we get several good places to go to each year, each opportunity. There's been several places in California, New York, Florida, and 3 times in New Orleans, including next year, including in 2026. So this year they are going to be at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. And this is their first time over there, but second time in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. And this is their first time over there, but second time in is really it. Follow where the money is, follow where the best places are. So we get several good places to go to each year, each opportunity. There's been several places in California, New York, Florida, and 3 times in New Orleans, including next year, including in 2026. So this year they are going to be at is really it. Follow where the money is, follow where the best places are. So we get several good places to go to each year, each opportunity. There's been several places in California, New York, Florida, and 3 times in New Orleans, including next year, including in 2026. So this year they are going to be at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. And this is their first time over there, but second time in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. And this is their first time over there, but second time in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. And this is their first time over there, but second time in Las Vegas. First time was WrestleMania 9. It was a moderate success, but right now we are looking at what places is good for WrestleMania. Right now they are circling a trend currently coinciding with the NFL with Super Bowl venues. So it's very exciting to have this episode premiere right at the time of WrestleMania, right at the time that we are getting ready for the grandest stage of them all. I'm super excited about this episode. Let's get started. Okay, so to start out, rather than going about the history, let's talk about the most visited town or city that WrestleMania has hosted. And believe it or not, the first number one place that has had the most WrestleManias is Los Angeles, California. They've been in Anaheim, they've been in Los Angeles altogether, Inglewood, all that is part of the Los Angeles area. And while doing research, I had to count out every single place. You can argue that New York is going to be close second with it, but looking at how the structure is with the New York venues, they've done Madison Square Garden mostly, and that was about 3 times. But if you include MetLife Stadium, home of the New York Jets and Giants, that is actually in New Jersey. And anyone who knows about the thing between New York and New Jersey is that New Jerseyans don't really consider themselves New Yorkers, really. So, yeah, though that's going to reduce the amount of New York venues by about 2 or 3. So, in a landslide, you get New York. You get Los Angeles before you even get close to New York. So, number one place they always choose is Los Angeles. It is clear that is the number one place. So when you look at the choices with New York and Florida and Los Angeles is going to be a close number one pick. They've hosted about 6 or 7 WrestleManias from what I've researched. So that is going to be the The best one, most recent, was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, WrestleMania 39. And that was about two events. This topic is going to be very difficult with 2 nights of events. Generally, I would like to consider them one event. But WWE and all the official sites consider them two separate events. So that's going to make this list a little bit difficult. But let's go on to the least visited stadium.
So the least visited city, there's actually three. The biggest one and the one that is probably can be considered the worst is Hartford, Connecticut. They've only been there once. You can also say that there's some other cities that have never hosted a WrestleMania to be considered the worst places to do it. There's been highly hopes for a London place, but the three places that have only hosted one WrestleMania with the least amount of visits is Hartford, Connecticut, Atlanta, Georgia, and Boston, Massachusetts. And looking at the attendance venues, we would say that attendance-wise, the worst attended venue out of those three would have to be Hartford, Connecticut, Hartford Civic Center, with 16,305 people, with Boston, Mass being a close second at 19,028, and Atlanta, Georgia, with the most success out of their three, with 71,617 people in attendance, which means that actually the Georgia Dome in Atlanta, Georgia, has a more higher chance to host another WrestleMania, to be able to host two WrestleManias in the coming years than Boston or Hartford, which means that Hartford, Connecticut still stands a chance to not only be the worst attended WrestleMania of all time, but probably the worst WrestleMania and also the least likely to get another chance at a WrestleMania. Now, if you really want to look at the attendance records for worst WrestleMania venues, the worst WrestleMania venue moment would have to be Orlando, Florida, in the WWE Performance Center with no crowd whatsoever. Now, that one deserves an asterisk because that one event, WrestleMania 36, deserves an asterisk on this list because even though that is the worst attended WrestleMania of all time with no one attending, and the only way for it to get worse is if it's in the negative. If you look at that one venue, that one WrestleMania, that one does not count because we were in the middle of a pandemic at that time. It was a pandemic era where we had absolutely no one going anywhere. and they still had to host the WrestleMania. They could not host it at the stadium that they wanted to, so they ended up doing it at the Performance Center. So, attendance-wise, we're not going to even count that as the worst attended WrestleMania. No, the worst attended WrestleMania of all time is Rosemont Horizon in Rosemont, Illinois, near Chicago, at 19,000 people. Sorry, let me correct myself. 9,000 people for WrestleMania 2. Now, WrestleMania 2 had 3 separate venues. One in Rosemont, Illinois, one in Los Angeles, and another one in New York. So, with all those going on at the same time, it's going to be very difficult for you to even count that as the least attended WrestleMania. That is probably the least attended venue of that year, but that's not the least attended WrestleMania. Again, the least attended WrestleMania would tend to be WrestleMania 36, but that one just deserves an asterisk on it. So, the close second for the least attended WrestleMania would have to be WrestleMania 7 at 16,158 people in attendance. Now, for this specific podcast, I repeat, I am not going to count how many people, or calculate how many people attended the venues of the WrestleMania. I am not going to sit there and add up how many times that they've hosted at Los Angeles, California, and add all of those numbers up. Because that's going to be insane to do. So, in the comment section, if you ask me, oh, why don't I just go with the most attended WrestleManias, most attended towns, and calculate all that? No, I'm not going to do that. That's going to take about 4 or 5 hours. That's going to make this episode way longer than what it should be. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to waste my time trying to calculate exactly how many people were in attendance at each stadium in total to figure out, okay, which one is the most, this has the highest attendance in all of WrestleManias. That's going to be crazy to do. But what I am going to do is go through the list of the WrestleManias that had the most attendance records. Now, arguably, the most attended WrestleMania would be WrestleMania 32, where they clocked it at the show, they clocked it at over 105,000. But the actual attendance was around 80,709. Number 2 would be Miami Gardens in Sun Life Stadium at 78,363. And the third most was WrestleMania 34. The one WrestleMania that I went to at 78,133 attendance. Now, that deserves an applause by itself. And then we go on to WrestleMania 3, which they argue to be the most highly rated venue before WrestleMania 32, but that one actually claims to be about 78,000 in attendance. So take that as you will. You can argue it. Dave Meltzer calculations and things. You know, we all know that WWE likes to inflate their attendance records at each venue, and apparently these are the official numbers. So the least attendance would have to be WrestleMania 7 officially at 16,158, and the least visited stadium would is still with three places in Hartford, Boston, and Atlanta. Now, if you really want to think about it, Hartford and Boston may be so close together you can actually consider that as one place. So if you want to consider Hartford and Boston one venue, one whole place, then we can actually do that. And then that would put Atlanta, Georgia as number one for the least hosted stadium or the least hosted area in for WrestleMania. And I honestly do believe, even though I'm a Saints fan, I honestly do believe that that could change in the next few years. Now, the performance of that WrestleMania may not have been that great, but that those attendance records says volumes. And next, we're going to be talking about how these attendance records speak to WrestleMania success and what they do for that WrestleMania success.
Okay, so here's what we have available for the data being used for the WrestleMania success. Now, when you look at the WrestleMania success rate, we would have to look at the success of what happened in the year prior and what went right, what went wrong, and what to expect in the future. So, what we're going to see here is that in the whole grand scheme of things, let me go back to the chart here. And yes, I do realize where I'm getting this data from may not be as reliable, but at least it's locked out from any editing. So it does hold up to all form of data here. And this is episode 1 of the podcast. So everything's going to be a work in progress, no matter what. So let's go down to the WrestleMania in Arlington, Texas, WrestleMania 32, where there was the most attended places most attended venue at 80,709. The year before was about 67,000. And the year afterwards was about 64,900 attendees. Now, that's not to say that WrestleMania 32 was a major success, because not a lot of people liked what happened at WrestleMania 32 of Roman Reigns, because that was during the time that Roman Reigns was being shoved down our throats. Everyone hated the main event of WrestleMania 31 all the way up until Seth Rollins cashed in his Money in the Bank. That's what made WrestleMania 31 greater than WrestleMania 32. In fact, for WrestleMania 32, there may be highlights of it, but it's not heavily featured. It's the most attended WrestleMania of all time, but it's not heavily featured in anything, which explains the drop of WrestleMania 33 in Orlando, Florida. WrestleMania 33 had 64,900 people, which, based off of what we're looking at right now, the 60 to 70,000 attendees tends to be probably a high average. And that's an asterisk there by itself, because when you look at all the other WrestleManias, especially in the 90s, from WrestleMania 9 in 1993 all the way down to 2000, those are in the late teen thousands, with about 16,000 being a very close average, next to 8 or even 19,000. Now that's about 6 WrestleManias with with 16 to 19,000 in attendance. And if you look at those numbers in today's sense, that's not really good attendance. Even with the 96 and 97 records. Sorry, 96 to probably 99 during the Attitude Era, the most highly talked about era in WWE history. Those are 19,000, or actually 16 to 19,000 in attendance. That's not really good attendance numbers in today's sense, but back then they would probably say that, oh well, that's really good attendance. And that goes from that says a lot when it goes from 19,044 for WrestleMania 10 to a drop of 16,305 to 18,853 in attendance. And they maintained that for 2 years straight. And that says a whole lot on their success. Now, the next year, 98, they increased to 19,028 and then 19,514, but then suffered a moderate drop in 2000 at 18,034. Now, the Fatal 4-Way match may not have been that big of a match overall, and that match may not have been their biggest success, or that event as a whole may not have been moderate success, but then you see a major increase in the attendance numbers. WrestleMania X7, one of the most highly successful WrestleManias of all time, probably in the top 5 WrestleManias of all time, if not the greatest WrestleMania of all time. That one WrestleMania has an attendance of 67,925, and then it increased to 68,237 the next year. And then they did not have a strong main event for WrestleMania 19. 19 has also been known to be one of the better WrestleManias also, but they chose Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar. Now remember, that main event was when Brock Lesnar did that moonsault. And that last ever moonsault that he ever did, where he almost landed on his neck and could have cost him his career. That one main event caused them to drop down to 54,097. And then the next year, for WrestleMania 20, it dropped down to 20,000. And you see moderate decline to an average number of 2,000 and also 17,000 in attendance over the next few years. Then it increased up to 74,000 and then maintained at 70, basically stayed in the 70s, all the way down to WrestleMania 30. WrestleMania 30, they're estimating to be about 60 to 65,000 in attendance. And that one, if you recall, was when they first came out with the WWE Network, and a lot of people wanted to subscribe to that, and they had a massive success with that. And with that being in Mercedes Superdome, near where I was living, I was actually going to get tickets for that, but had issues with the travel. The travel plans did not go well, and I was not able to actually attend it, but I was actually able to watch it in the dorm room of my college. So that was a pretty good success idea. I really do wish that I did attend it, but I made it up 4 years later at WrestleMania 34. And I'll never forget that night, even though that was probably considered one of the not so better WrestleManias, but it was still a pretty good WrestleMania experience for me personally. We go down to WrestleMania 31. It went up to 67,000, and it still should have been better, but I think it was more of a timing issue, which is, Santa Clara Levi Stadium is an outdoor stadium, so many of their matches were during the daytime in that area, which does not work well with WrestleMania. So obviously that one may not have been as good. Now, earlier, yes, I did talk about that main event. Okay, but let's look at that WrestleMania as a whole, where we had Sting versus Triple H. And on how that was managed and Undertaker's return after his surprise defeat at WrestleMania 30 and all those things. If anyone would have known that WrestleMania 30 was going to be Undertaker's end of the streak, that attendance may have been a lot bigger than what it was. So that was the biggest shock of that night. Everyone was still reeling over that. I know I was shocked when I saw it and was like, well, that did not seem right. And everyone was still talking about that all the way down to the main event. And they sold that main event very well. I mean, that was one of the greatest main events of all time. Then they cap it up with another great event the next year at WrestleMania 31 with the Seth Rollins cash in. WrestleMania 32 was building off that success, and then you see a small drop, or a pretty big drop actually, with WrestleMania 33. WrestleMania 33, 64,900 attendance, almost at 65,000, which seems to be a moderate average during that time frame. And the main event wasn't that great overall. I still remember a spot with um, Roman Reigns and Undertaker where they were trying to do a tombstone or pile driver like um, move spot, and Undertaker just could not hold up to Roman Reigns. So that was just showing Undertaker's age at that point. So it did not make that match look good. That was also the match where the event that we saw Bray Wyatt versus Randy Orton and the screen canvas doing a weird thing with roaches and stuff. Not that great of an idea overall. Very low budget. And then we go to the WrestleMania that I attended personally at 78,133, which chose to be an increase of attendance and success, very close to WrestleMania 32's success in attendance, and going back to a pretty decent average back from 20 not from 23 all the way down to 29. So that was pretty good. Um, then comes 35 to up to between 68 to 70,000, another average amount. Um, can't really say that one was very successful overall. 36, as I said earlier in this podcast, it needs to have an asterisk on it because no one could attend it because of the pandemic. So it had to be moved to Atlanta, Florida. No one could attend it or anything. So you had to just suck up, watch it from home. Everything else, this site really needs to have the overall watch records and things, but that may be what they're getting all these high numbers from as well. Let's see. Raymond James Stadium. Now, 37 on down is when you see post-pandemic era where they have WrestleMania 2 nights. And this makes it very difficult to calculate their success. The first two nights of this trial shows 17,946 and 18,501. So that means that I'm going to have to get my calculator out here and calculate that overall attendance. Now, if we go by the WrestleMania numbers, like 36, 37, 35 on down, then these numbers are going to be very um, controversial here because not only, and there's going to be huge asterisks in all of these double nights because there's going to be a lot of people attending both nights. So if all these people attended both nights, like if everyone attended both nights at WrestleMania 37 and then they came back and every single one of them came back for 17 for the next night of the 18,501, then that's going to create a huge asterisk on their success rate. I know that WrestleMania tickets are very hard to come by right now, and again, both nights are going to be very expensive. So there's that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and calculate WrestleMania 37 real quick. And I know this is really bad to do on a podcast, but you just got to do what you got to do. This is still work in progress. I'm going by facts and everything else. This is not scripted. So, take it as it is. So that sums up to be about 36,447 attendance overall in total, which is a drop in the average, but it is also a good increase to the one prior. And that shows signs of decent success. And I do believe that that was one of the first events that they had where there was actual attendance. So bear in mind that does deserve the most asterisks on this because of the fact that everyone was still recovering from the pandemic. Travel was very difficult to do. COVID was still rampant during that time. So it was more for locals more so than national or international visitors. Um, so the next couple years, you see a high increase of the attendance overall, and those are going to increase substantially. And I do believe that's going to increase the attendance to over 100,000. So let's actually skip 38, even though that was one of the better successors there, and they were actually writing off the success of WrestleMania 32, where we talked about that being the highest attended WrestleMania event. And like I said, these are going to have high asterisks on it, but we're going to look at WrestleMania 39. That was right off that success and being Inglewood, California, or Hollywood, because that was WrestleMania goes Hollywood. So they both had over 67,000. 553. Sorry, 67,000. Let's go 303 plus 67553. 134,856. Now that is the highest number attended for a WrestleMania in their history. That is the current official highest attended WrestleMania in history. And that means that if you want to include both those nights as one WrestleMania, that one has the most success and most highest attended venue of all time. That is the most ways that's the only way I'm going to calculate these attendance records. And that one shatters the record of WrestleMania 32 by a mile. So if you really want to say that WrestleMania have attendance into consideration, look at those numbers. Numbers don't lie. So that shows most success. The next year there was a slight drop by 7,000 both nights, which sums up to be about 14,000 drop page last year, but still success. So take that as you will. Um, Again, I do apologize for all of how this thing's being formatted, but it is what it is. I gotta do what I gotta do, and gotta handle with what I handle. So overall, everything's being tested. It's all trial and error at this point. It's all trial and error. So nothing I can say or do about that. I do apologize, but these are just. I was just doing this to show you the numbers of every single thing. I'm still learning this format. I'm still trying to figure out the ways to actually do everything to show exactly how everything is done. And I am still trying to format everything to moderate success. And I only have weekends to do this. So once I get my co-host on track here, and we'll actually be doing discussions about everything. Remember, this is episode 1. There's going to be trial and errors, and before you can be successful, you got to make mistakes. You got to do stuff. You got to fail before you become successful. So overall, the attendance and what they have to choose from mainly goes by what they need to do for the overall success, financials, and everything else. So overall, they got WrestleMania 41 coming up in Allegiant Stadium. They're going to look at those numbers and see if they're going to be able to do that again in the next 3 or 4 years. New Orleans is coming back, which is good. They, as you saw earlier, they had great success there. Then they're going to Indianapolis, Indiana, which I believe is going to be their second or third time over there. So I can easily, yeah, their second time there since they've been there at WrestleMania 8, which showed to be one of their more higher success places during that time. And I right that was their second most successful WrestleMania. Or sorry, I stand corrected. Third most successful WrestleMania when they started. Their second most was Toronto, Ontario, Canada in the Skydome. And then you have the Silverdome at 78,000. That was their most success starting out before Arlington. So be on the lookout for Arlington, Atlanta, or even Houston, Dallas, Texas, potentially Los Angeles, California in the near futures. Those are my predictions. My predictions are the Los Angeles, probably in northern New York, Atlanta, Georgia, Dallas, and in New Orleans. So, um, yeah, that are my predictions of everything that this is episode 1 of the Broken Turnbuckle podcast. Name is still in debate at this time, so don't hold it to me that the podcast is going to be officially the Broken Turnbuckle. Most of the places that I've had the poll votes have selected Broken Turnbuckle, so it may still be Broken Turnbuckle. I'm still waiting on a few more polls to see if anything changes, but right now most people have said Broken Turnbuckle. So right now I'm sticking to that. Um, we're still going to have a session called No Topics Barred for the podcast, for the interview podcast, for when we bring actual wrestlers or people in. I'm probably going to have special guests over here eventually to talk about other topics. But yes, this is just the testing of this show on how it's going to go. So take it as you will on this. Um, gotta crawl before you walk. Everything else, I mean, it's going to be a work in progress overall. So don't hold it to me that this is going to be a one and done deal. because I'm going to try to be more successful on this. I'm going to try and fix everything to be better and things with everything that I got here. So everything's going to be difficult for right now, but it's going to get better. Everything's going to get better as time goes on. So this may be one of the worst episodes, but we're going to have better episodes going forward. And we're going to have better ways to do it. Everything's going to be trial and error at this point. So episode 2 should be dropping next weekend. And I'm still debating on what the topic should be. It should still be WrestleMania related. It should still be WrestleMania related. I am still going to be doing the solo until further notice. I'm still going to be doing this until further notice. Once I get more guests, more people on here, then the real entertainment begins. Then we can have debates, discussions, and everything else like I envision this podcast to be. But until then, you're just going to stick with me at this time. I do apologize that there was no actual videos. There was just images. Copyright issues. You got to deal with what you got to deal with. And you still have to deal with the video edit software that I got. So, yeah, got to deal with what you got to deal with. And have to deal with copyright issues and everything else. So once I get more traction, more subscribers, viewers, everything else, right now I'm at 25 subscribers. Once I get more, I may be able to do more with this channel. And I may be able to actually get more videos to post out. We may even do some skits or something. And go beyond wrestling. We may be talking about football. We may be talking about basketball. We may be talking about a lot of other stuff other than just wrestling. So that's what the No Topics Bar is going to be about. It's going to be more than just wrestling and things. Are we going to have wrestlers come on? Yes. If I get more traction and more viewers and get monetized and everything and be able to get those guys on and legends on, then yes, I will definitely get more wrestlers to interview and see if we can do live interviews. I'm still trying to figure out how we're going to do the interviews right now. If it's going to be pre-recorded or live on YouTube. So we're still working on that. And we're still working on a lot of other stuff. This is just episode 1. It's going to be a work in progress. And, you can go on the comments, say what you like, what you did not like, what's working, what's not working, what I can do to make this channel better. Every single thing that you can think of. Every single thing. Grow my hair out, fine, I can do that. Shave, perfectly fine. You can say whatever. Just don't say lose glasses because I'm legally blind. I mean, what more would you expect on that? Can't lose the glasses. I'm sorry. So everything else, this is just a start. Hopefully, in the next podcast, we'll be able to do a lot more, and hopefully, we'll have a better thing. And we may actually do reviews of the shows, Raw, SmackDown, probably some AEW. We may be doing those reviews throughout, live reactions. I'm not a real big fan of live reactions, but I can do a live reaction show and see exactly what goes on there. People like that. I can probably do it. It's going to be very difficult to do, but we can do that. Up to y'all. Y'all can come up with y'all's own votes. Y'all can come up with y'all's own opinions. Every single thing that you can think of. I am going to be creating shorts of these podcasts to get the name out there a little bit more and see exactly what we can do to get this show better. And I mean a lot better than what it is now. This is just episode 1. There's going to be trial and errors. Everything's going to be pretty much crappy, sucky right now, but all I can say is that it should get better by episode 50. 20 or 50, it should be getting better. By episode 10, it should go a lot smoother than what it does today. And we will get a lot more stuff done. This was a very difficult topic with it just being me. Originally, my vision was just to have a discussion on best WrestleMania venues and things. But with it being me, I just got to go with facts. I'm sorry. We may come back to this next year or later on and discuss it then and see if it can be a more live interactive discussion thing. YouTube does not allow me to do live shows until we get over 50 subscribers. And right now I'm at 25, so I'm halfway there. So if we can get 50 to 100 more subscribers, that'd be great. My goal with this podcast is get over 1,000 subscribers within the next 6 months. If I can get 1,000 subscribers within the next 6 months, then I can go on to the next big thing. And that is to get 10,000 subscribers. Then 50,000. Or sorry, 25,000. Then 50,000. And on down. And we'll be going through the different things like all the other channels do with these shows. So, excuse me, I got hiccups. So, when it comes down to this show, please take this episode with a grain of salt. It's not going to go all the way down like this the entire time. Again, it's just me for right now for the first few episodes. Next, once we get everything down the road, then we'll be able to schedule everything and get everything situated. And who knows? Maybe we'll have someone else other than just me on the show. Maybe there's going to be an episode where there's going to be Tyler and someone else, or me and someone other than Tyler. Who knows? So it just depends on what all goes on. This episode is just trial and error. We're doing our best right now, and we'll be doing a lot more things and everything else. So, yeah. So, I'm excited about this. I hope you are too. Please like, share, subscribe. And I do apologize for that. My cat just randomly decided to have zoomies and decided to knock down the computer and things. So I do believe I got everything fixed back up. So, in closing, like, share, subscribe, comment on here. Please get all your friends involved. Get them to share and subscribe. Do everything that you can to get this channel more traction. And um, this is the Jedi Zero 08, also known as Jeremy the Jedi Guillory. And thank you and goodbye.